She walked down the narrow street, carrying her piano books and a small bag of sheet music. The city around her was noisy, full of people hurrying to work, cars honking, and street vendors calling out their prices. But she hardly noticed it. Her mind was focused on the little music studio she had rented above an old bakery. It was not a fancy place, but it had a small upright piano that was just her size, and that was all she needed. Every day she came here, she would teach music to children whose parents could afford private lessons. She loved seeing them learn. But today was different. Today she felt something she could not explain. A pull in her heart telling her that someone special was waiting for her in a place she had never noticed before. She had heard about a child in the neighborhood who could not see. People spoke quietly about the boy, saying he was quiet, gentle, and full of curiosity. She had never met him, but stories had reached her ears from neighbors, friends, and even the children she taught. The boy was said to have a natural love for music, humming small tunes he had heard somewhere, tapping his fingers in rhythm when he felt the beat. She wondered how it would feel to meet someone who could not see the world but could feel it in sound and vibration. She reached the small park at the corner of the street. Children were playing, their laughter echoing in the chilly morning air. She noticed a boy sitting alone on a bench, a small cane resting against his legs, and his fingers brushing over a little keyboard attached to a worn wooden table. He was humming a tune, softly, with a smile that seemed to come from deep inside. She stopped in her tracks, unable to move, mesmerized by the way he seemed lost in his music even though no one else noticed him. The boy did not seem aware of her watching. His fingers moved with precision, pressing keys carefully, even though he could not see them. She realized immediately that he had a natural sense of rhythm, something rare and beautiful. Her heart beat faster. She felt a strong urge to approach him, but she hesitated. She did not know how the child or his family would react to a stranger showing interest in him. After a few moments, she walked closer, gently so she would not startle him. She crouched down a little, careful to keep her voice soft. "Hello," she said. "I like the music you are playing." The boy paused, his fingers frozen above the keys. "Who is there?" he asked, his voice small but curious. "I am someone who loves music too," she said. "Would you like to play together sometime?" He tilted his head, listening carefully, then nodded. "I like music," he said quietly. They spent the next hour together. She guided his hands on the keyboard, showing him different keys, different tones. He was quick to learn, and his eyes, or rather the expression on his face, lit up with excitement each time he got a note right. She noticed that he could feel the vibrations of the piano, pressing down with a delicate touch, adjusting his hands until the sound was exactly right. There was a sensitivity to his movements that fascinated her. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the park, she realized she had lost track of time. She had been teaching him without expecting anything in return, simply enjoying the way he responded to the music, the way his face would glow when he discovered a new sound. She asked him where he lived, trying to be careful, but his answer was cautious. "I live with my father," he said. "He is very busy." She understood immediately that this was not just any child. The boy's father was wealthy, perhaps even very wealthy. People in the neighborhood whispered about the kind of life he must lead, and she guessed that he would have strict rules about who could teach his child. She felt a pang of worry. How could she continue to teach him if his father did not approve? But when she looked at the boy, she saw hope and eagerness, and she knew she could not walk away. Over the next few days, she returned to the park, carrying her music books and small keyboard whenever she could. Each time, the boy ran to greet her, his hands reaching for the instrument as if they had been waiting for this connection all along. She taught him simple songs first, the kind that anyone could learn, but then gradually moved to more complex pieces, observing his skill and patience. He listened carefully, repeated each note, and smiled whenever he mastered a part. She realized that his love for music went far beyond simple curiosity. It was part of who he was. But she also noticed the child's father watching from a distance sometimes, a tall man with sharp eyes and a serious expression. He would stand silently, watching his son, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She knew that one day he might approach and ask questions she was not ready to answer. Still, every day she found herself coming back, unable to resist the connection they had formed. One afternoon, as the sky turned a deep orange with the sunset, the boy asked her something she had been dreading. "Will my father let me keep learning?" he said, his small voice trembling. She knelt beside him, holding his hands gently. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I promise you we will find a way. I will not stop teaching you as long as I can." The boy smiled, trusting her without hesitation. That trust moved her deeply. She realized that teaching him in secret was not just about music. It was about giving him freedom, confidence, and a voice through the piano. Each note they played together became a part of their shared world. A world where he could express himself and she could guide him without fear or judgment. Days turned into weeks. She would sneak into the park or sometimes a small rented studio, carrying her piano books and small portable keyboard. Each lesson was a new adventure. They played duets, explored melodies, and sometimes she would just let him play while she listened, marveling at how naturally he understood rhythm and emotion. The boy's progress astonished her. He could now play entire songs from memory, his fingers dancing across the keys, and yet he always remained humble, always eager to learn more. One rainy afternoon, the boy said something that took her by surprise. "I want to play for everyone," he said. "I want to show them what I can do." She smiled but shook her head gently. "Not yet," she said. "We must be careful. Your father may not understand right now. But one day, we will find a way for people to hear your music." The boy nodded, but she could see the excitement in his posture, the way his hands itched to play for others. She felt a mixture of hope and worry. She knew that one day the secret lessons would be discovered, and she had no idea how his father would react. Yet, she also knew that this music, this connection, was too important to stop. By the time the sun had set and the city lights began to twinkle, she packed up her things and walked home slowly, thinking about the boy and his potential. She thought about how someone who could not see the world might experience it in the most beautiful way through music. And she felt a sense of purpose she had never felt before. Teaching him in secret was no longer just an act of kindness. It was a mission, a promise she had made to herself and to the boy whose life was opening up in ways even wealth and privilege could not guarantee. As she lay in bed that night, she could hear faint echoes of the piano in her mind. The boy's small hands pressing keys, creating melodies that seemed to belong to both of them. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, and perhaps even anger from the father. But she also knew that what they were building together was real, honest, and powerful. And for the first time, she felt that her love for music had found a purpose greater than herself. She returned the next morning with a small bag of sheet music and a notebook full of simple songs she had prepared. The boy was waiting at the same spot in the park, sitting on the bench with his cane resting beside him. As soon as he felt her approach, he smiled, and she noticed how naturally he leaned forward to meet the music she brought. It was a quiet morning, the city waking slowly, and the sounds of birds mixed with distant traffic created a strange, comforting harmony. "Good morning," she said softly. "Are you ready to play today?" He nodded, his small fingers brushing the keyboard in anticipation. There was something about his eagerness that warmed her heart. She had been teaching children for years, but there was a unique energy in this child. He learned quickly, not just by hearing, but by feeling the vibration of each note. Music was more than sound for him. It was a way to experience the world. They began with simple scales, the boy's fingers moving carefully at first, then growing more confident. She guided his hands gently, showing him how to press the keys with the right pressure, how to listen for the subtle differences in tone. Each note he played seemed to vibrate through her chest, and she realized that she had never seen a child connect with music in this way before. After the scales, she introduced a small song she had written in her notebook. It was simple but melodic, with a rhythm that encouraged movement and expression. The boy listened carefully as she played each line once, twice, then asked him to try. He hesitated for a moment, then began to play, his fingers trembling slightly. When he hit the first correct notes, A broad smile spread across his face, and she felt a rush of joy. "You're doing wonderfully," she said. "Feel the music in your hands. Don't just play the notes. Feel them." He nodded, and she watched as he began to improvise, adding little flourishes she had not taught him. She realized that he was not just learning, he was creating. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when teaching became more than instruction. It became collaboration. Days passed, and each lesson brought new discoveries. She noticed the way he listened, not just with his ears, but with his entire body. When a note sounded wrong, he would pause, lift his hands slightly, and adjust the pressure. He could feel vibrations in the piano and in the floor beneath him, and he used that sense to guide his playing. She was amazed at his sensitivity and patience. One afternoon, as the rain tapped gently on the studio windows, she brought a small metronome. "This will help you keep time," she explained. The boy's fingers hesitated at first, trying to match the beat. She held his hand over the keys, letting him feel the rhythm through her touch. Slowly, steadily, he began to play in time with the metronome. The smile on his face told her everything. He had mastered something difficult, and he had done it on his own terms. While teaching him, she also started to learn more about his life. He spoke cautiously at first, but gradually he shared small pieces of his world. His father was very busy, he said, often traveling for work. The boy lived in a large house, quiet and empty, with few friends who could understand him. Music had become his companion, a way to fill the spaces in his day with sound and joy. She listened carefully, understanding that her lessons were more than just piano practice. They were a connection to the world for him, a way for him to feel seen and heard. She knew that teaching him in secret came with risks. The father was a powerful man, wealthy and protective, and he might not approve of someone unknown teaching his child. But she also knew that the boy needed her guidance, and she could not ignore that need. Each lesson felt like a quiet rebellion, a small act of courage that carried both fear and hope. One day, she decided to challenge him with a slightly more complex song. She played it slowly first, letting him hear every note. Then she asked him to try. At first, he stumbled, hitting a few wrong notes, but she encouraged him gently. "Don't worry about mistakes," she said. "Every mistake is a step closer to learning." He tried again, and this time he made fewer mistakes. She could see the concentration in his face, the way he held himself still, listening to the sound of the piano. After several attempts, he finally played the song correctly from start to finish. His face lit up, and she felt a surge of pride that was almost overwhelming. This was the reward she had been waiting for, the proof that her patience and guidance were making a difference. The boy's confidence grew with each lesson. He started experimenting, creating small variations on the songs she taught him, adding little flourishes and rhythms that made the music uniquely his. She encouraged him, praising his creativity, and in return, he trusted her more. Their bond deepened with each session, built on shared joy and the silent understanding that music was their language. However, there were moments of tension. She noticed the boy's father appearing more frequently, sometimes watching from a distance, sometimes entering the park unexpectedly. She had to be careful, hiding their sessions when necessary and creating excuses for the boy's presence. She felt a constant edge of anxiety, knowing that their secret might soon be discovered. But each time she saw the boy's smile, each time she heard him play a perfect note or create a new melody, she knew it was worth the risk. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the streets grew quiet, the boy said something that made her heart skip a beat. "I want to play for others someday," he said softly. "I want them to hear what I can do." She knelt beside him, her hands resting gently on his shoulders. "That will come," she said. "But for now, we keep practicing in secret. One day, when the time is right, everyone will hear your music, and they will be amazed." He nodded, content for the moment, and they continued their lesson until the park was nearly empty. She packed up her books and keyboard, feeling a sense of purpose she had never known. Teaching in secret was no longer just about music. It was about giving a child the tools to express himself, to find joy in a world that could be isolating and lonely. Days turned into weeks. Their sessions became a rhythm in their lives, a sacred time where the outside world faded, leaving only music, trust, and discovery. She saw him grow not just as a musician, but as a person, confident, expressive, and full of life. And she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they had created something extraordinary together, a bond that could not be broken by wealth, rules, or fear. The boy's talent grew with each lesson, and soon he could play more difficult songs than she had expected. She noticed that his sense of rhythm and his memory for notes were extraordinary. What amazed her most was the way he could feel the music, the subtle vibrations of the piano, and translate that into emotion. He could play a song, and even without words, she could feel what he was trying to express. One afternoon, as they were practicing a new piece, she realized that people were starting to notice the boy's skill. Neighbors passing by the park would pause and listen quietly, admiring the music coming from the small keyboard. Children playing nearby would stop and sway to the rhythm, and even adults would linger, enchanted by the sound. The boy seemed unaware of the attention, lost in his own world, and she realized that he was beginning to shine without trying. This new attention brought both excitement and worry. She noticed the father appearing more often, watching from the shadows or standing at a distance in the park. His presence was quiet but commanding, a reminder that their secret lessons could not remain hidden forever. She worried about what he might think if he realized someone unknown was teaching his child, especially someone not formally employed or introduced to the family. The boy, oblivious to the concern, asked her one day, "Do you think my father would like my music?" His voice was small, but there was hope in it, a desire for approval. She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I think he will be proud one day," she said carefully. "But for now, we must practice quietly. One day, everyone will hear your music, and they will understand how special you are." He nodded, content for the moment, and returned to the keyboard. She watched him, feeling both admiration and concern. He was progressing quickly, faster than any child she had taught before. His talent was rare, something that could not be hidden for long. A few days later, the boy's father appeared unexpectedly. He stood silently at the edge of the park, observing. She felt her heart race, unsure of how he would react. The boy, sensing the presence, turned his head toward the sound of footsteps but did not stop playing. The father's expression was unreadable. He did not speak, simply watching as his child's hands moved across the keys. There was a moment of tension, a quiet pause where the air seemed thick with unspoken questions. She did not move, did not intervene, letting the father see what his child could do. After several minutes, the father finally spoke. "Where did you learn this?" His voice was calm but firm, carrying authority. The boy looked up, confused. I play here," he said softly. "With her." The father's gaze shifted to her, and she felt a mixture of fear and resolve. She knew she had to speak, to explain what they were doing. "I have been teaching him music," she said carefully. "I noticed his talent and wanted to help him. He is a quick learner, and I thought he might enjoy playing more than he had before." The father remained silent for a moment, studying her. There was no immediate anger, no harsh words, only a thoughtful expression. She waited, tense, as the boy continued to play a simple melody, his eyes closed, completely absorbed in the music. Finally, the father spoke again, softer this time. "You see the world differently," he said to the boy. "Music gives you something words cannot. But who are you?" He turned to her, curiosity mingled with authority. She introduced herself simply, explaining her experience as a music teacher and her love for teaching children. She emphasized that her intentions were to help, to give the boy a chance to explore his passion for music. The father listened carefully, his gaze occasionally flicking to his son. The boy, still unaware of the full weight of the situation, continued to play, adding a small variation to the song she had taught him. She noticed the father's eyes soften, a subtle recognition of his child's talent and joy. Over the next few days, she noticed a change. The father began to ask questions, curious rather than critical. He wanted to know what they were practicing, how the boy was learning, and how she encouraged him. The conversations were cautious, polite, and sometimes distant, but she could see that he was beginning to appreciate the boy's progress. The boy, sensing the shift, grew bolder in his playing. He experimented with new melodies, improvising small pieces, and sometimes humming along. She encouraged him to explore, to trust his instincts. The father watched quietly during these sessions, occasionally nodding or smiling when the boy discovered a particularly beautiful sound. Despite the growing approval, she remained careful. She did not want to push too far too soon. There was still uncertainty in the father's mind, a protective instinct that could turn into strict boundaries at any moment. She continued to teach with patience and understanding, knowing that trust took time, especially with a parent who had a lot at stake. One day, as the boy played a complex piece from memory, she noticed the father tapping his foot in rhythm, subtle but unmistakable. It was the first sign that he was truly listening, truly appreciating the music. The boy finished the piece and looked up, beaming, unaware of the significance of his father's reaction. "That was very good," the father said simply. "You are learning quickly." The boy's smile widened, and he turned to her with excitement. "She helped me," he said proudly. "I can do it." She smiled, feeling a wave of relief and joy. The father's words, though few, meant a great deal. It was a small acknowledgement, a sign that their secret lessons were no longer completely hidden, but that they were beginning to be understood and appreciated. As the weeks passed, the boy's skill continued to grow. He could now play entire songs by ear, adding his own emotions and interpretations. The father, while still cautious, allowed the lessons to continue, sometimes observing quietly, sometimes asking questions about technique and practice. She realized that the boy's journey was not just about learning music. It was about gaining confidence, experiencing freedom, and discovering a part of himself that had been waiting to emerge. The lessons were shaping him in ways that went beyond notes and rhythms. They were shaping his character, his ability to trust, and his understanding of what he could achieve. One evening, as the city lights flickered on and the streets grew quiet, she packed up their things, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. The boy had played beautifully, expressing himself with a confidence she had never seen before. She knew that challenges still lay ahead, but for now they had reached a milestone. The father had begun to understand, and the boy had begun to shine. She walked home slowly, thinking about the journey so far. The secret lessons had brought them all closer together, her, the boy, and even his father in an indirect way. She knew that music had the power to change lives, to bridge gaps, and to create understanding where words could not. And she felt certain that their story was only beginning, that there were still many melodies to explore, many moments of discovery, and many surprises awaiting them in the days to come. The lessons continued, but a tension lingered in the air. The boy's father had begun to ask more questions, sometimes appearing at the park unannounced. She felt the weight of these interruptions, knowing that any misstep could end the lessons. Yet, she also saw how much the boy's confidence and happiness had grown, and that made her determined to continue. One morning, as she arrived with her bag of sheet music, she noticed the father waiting nearby. He did not approach immediately, only watched. The boy sensed the presence and hesitated, hands hovering over the keyboard. She walked to the bench, smiling reassuringly, and whispered, "It's okay, just play." The boy took a deep breath and began. The notes flowed, a simple melody at first, but soon becoming more complex. He was experimenting, adding flourishes and gentle pauses. She watched as the father's expression softened, a mixture of awe and curiosity. He had never seen his child play with such freedom and emotion before. After a while, the father stepped forward. "Stop for a moment," he said, his voice calm but firm. The boy paused, looking uncertain. "I want to talk," the father said, nodding at her. She followed him to a quiet corner of the park, keeping her voice gentle. "I know what you've been doing," he said. "I see the lessons, the time, the progress. But why haven't you told me?" She took a breath, steadying herself. "I didn't want to risk losing the chance to teach him," she said. "I saw his talent and I wanted to help. He is extraordinary, and I thought the lessons could give him something special, even if you were busy." The father listened silently, his eyes fixed on her, then turned to the boy, who had paused near the bench, unsure what to do. "Do you want to continue learning?" he asked. The boy nodded eagerly, looking between them. "I see," the father said slowly. "You've helped him discover something I hadn't realized. But you need to understand, I must protect him. I cannot allow someone unknown to influence him without knowing their intentions." She nodded, understanding completely. "I understand," she said. "I only want to help him express what he feels through music. Nothing more." The father paused, considering her words. Finally, he said, "Very well. You may continue, but under my supervision. I want to know what he is learning, and I need to be assured that it is good for him." She felt relief wash over her, a mixture of gratitude and nervousness. This was a chance to continue teaching, officially this time, but it also meant she had to navigate the father's rules carefully. The lessons resumed, now with the father occasionally observing. He was quiet at first, standing at a distance, letting the boy focus. Over time, he began to ask questions, sometimes about technique, sometimes about the songs. She answered honestly, explaining her methods and showing how each lesson built on the last. The boy flourished under the new arrangement. He felt encouraged and proud, and even with the father watching, he played with emotion and creativity. The father's presence became less intimidating, more of a supportive figure, and she realized that he was slowly coming to appreciate what she had been doing all along. One day, the father surprised her by sitting down beside the boy at the keyboard. "Show me what you've learned," he said. The boy's hands hovered over the keys. Then he began to play a piece he had mastered weeks ago. She watched as the father's eyes softened, his posture relaxing. It was the first time she saw him smile genuinely at his child's music. "Excellent," the father said. "I didn't realize how much he had grown." "Thank you." The boy beamed at her, proud to share the praise. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that their secret lessons had not only taught him music, but had also built a bridge of trust and understanding between the father and the child. From that day on, the lessons became a routine that everyone respected. The father still asked questions, still watched carefully, but he no longer seemed suspicious. He even began to encourage the boy, sometimes tapping a foot to the rhythm or nodding in approval. The boy's confidence soared. He was no longer hesitant or shy about his playing. He began composing small melodies on his own, experimenting with chords and improvisation. She encouraged him, praising his creativity, and the father watched in quiet admiration. It was clear that the boy's love for music had become a part of who he was, a way to express himself and find joy. The boy's progress also caught the attention of others in the community. Occasionally, neighbors would stop by, drawn by the sound of the piano. They would watch in awe as he played, and she could see the pride in his father's eyes. What had started as secret lessons in a small park had become something larger, something that touched the hearts of those who listened. Despite the growing attention, she remained humble, focused on the boy and his development. She did not seek recognition for herself. Her joy came from seeing him succeed and express himself through music. One afternoon, as they finished a lesson, the boy turned to her and said, "I think I want to play in front of more people someday. I want them to hear my music." She smiled, understanding the depth of his desire. "One day you will," she said. "We just need to practice more and make sure you are ready. When the time comes, your music will speak for itself." The father, who had been quietly watching, nodded. "I want to hear him play for others too," he said. "I see now how important this is to him, but we will take it one step at a time." She felt a wave of relief and happiness. The path ahead was still uncertain, but they had reached a turning point. The lessons were no longer a secret, but they had grown into something far more meaningful. Trust, understanding, and a shared love of music that connected them all. That evening, she walked home, reflecting on the journey so far. The boy had grown not just in skill, but in confidence and joy. The father had shifted from suspicion to quiet support, and she had discovered a new purpose, the knowledge that her guidance could change lives, one note at a time. She knew challenges still lay ahead, but for now, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They had navigated fear, secrecy, and doubt to reach this point. And as she thought about the boy, her heart swelled with pride and hope. Together, they had created something beautiful, and the story of their music was only beginning. The weeks turned into months, and the boy's skill grew beyond what anyone had imagined. His fingers moved over the keys with confidence, his ears catching subtle changes in tone, and his heart pouring emotion into every note. She watched him with quiet pride, amazed at how far he had come. What had started as secret lessons in a small park had become a journey that transformed not just him, but everyone around him. The father, once distant and skeptical, had now become an attentive observer. He would sit quietly in the background, listening, sometimes tapping a foot to the rhythm, other times nodding slowly, clearly impressed by the boy's growth. He began to understand the joy that music brought, not just for the boy but for everyone who heard him. Occasionally, he would offer gentle guidance or ask questions, but he had learned to trust her teaching and the boy's instincts. One morning, she arrived at the park with a new challenge. She had prepared a piece that was more difficult, with complex rhythms and emotional depth. She handed the sheet music to the boy, who looked at her with excitement and determination. "Are you ready?" she asked. He nodded and they began. At first, the notes stumbled slightly, his hands finding their place, then flowing smoothly as he gained confidence. She encouraged him, praising small successes and guiding him through tricky passages. His focus was intense, and she could see his heart in every movement, in every sound. When he finished the piece, she clapped softly. "That was beautiful," she said. "Do you hear how much emotion you can put into your music?" The boy smiled, proud but also thoughtful. "I want to play for more people," he said. "I want them to feel what I feel." She nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. "One day we will. But first we need to be ready. You need to feel confident in your music and in yourself." The father, who had been standing nearby, approached. "I want to hear him play for others," he said quietly. "I see now how important this is for him. He has something rare, something special." She felt a rush of relief and joy. The father's words meant that they could take the next step, carefully and thoughtfully. They began planning small performances, starting with friends and neighbors who had supported them from the beginning. Each performance was a small triumph, the boy growing more confident, the father proud, and she feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The boy's music began to attract attention beyond the neighborhood. People came to listen, drawn by the stories of his talent and determination. She watched as the boy played for larger audiences, never faltering, his hands moving gracefully over the keys, his heart and soul in every note. The father stood beside her, proud and supportive, sometimes capturing the moment on camera, other times simply listening in awe. Through it all, she remained focused on the boy, encouraging him to express himself and to trust his instincts. She praised creativity, nurtured his love for music, and celebrated every small success. The bond they had formed was deep, built on trust, patience, and shared joy. One day, after a particularly moving performance in a small hall filled with friends, neighbors, and supporters, the father turned to her. "I cannot thank you enough," he said. "You have given him something I could not provide alone. You have opened a world for him." She smiled, feeling the weight of the journey. "It was not just me," she said. "It was him, his talent, and his heart. I only guided him along the way." The boy, standing between them, held their hands and looked up with a bright smile. "Thank you for teaching me," he said. "I love playing music. I love sharing it." The father nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "I see that now, and I am proud of you." The journey had been long and challenging, but the results were clear. The boy's life had changed. Music had given him confidence, joy, and a voice that went beyond words. He had learned discipline, patience, and creativity. The father had learned to trust, to step back, and to see the world through his child's eyes. and she had discovered the power of dedication, patience, and the ability to touch lives in ways that could not be measured by wealth or status. As the months passed, the boy continued to play and learn, performing for larger audiences, sometimes invited to local events, sometimes playing for school gatherings. She continued to guide him, always there to encourage and support, never demanding, always nurturing. The bond between teacher and student had grown into a family-like connection, one built on mutual respect and shared love for music. One evening, after a long day of practice and a small performance for the community, they sat together in the quiet of the park. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of nature. The boy played a gentle melody, his fingers moving with ease, his heart reflected in every note. She listened, feeling a deep sense of peace and satisfaction. "You have come so far," she said softly. "I am proud of you." He looked at her, a small smile on his lips. "I could not have done it without you." The father, standing behind them, added, "And I could not have done it without both of you. You have changed his life." They sat together in silence, letting the music speak, letting the quiet evening hold them. It was a moment of triumph, not just for the boy, but for everyone who had been a part of this journey. It was proof that love, patience, and dedication could overcome fear, doubt, and even secrecy. In the weeks that followed, the boy continued to perform, his talent growing and his confidence soaring. The father became an active supporter, attending lessons, celebrating successes, and encouraging new challenges. She remained by his side, guiding, nurturing, and celebrating each step. Together, they had created something extraordinary, a story of growth, trust, and the transformative power of music. And as she watched the boy play one evening, the notes filling the park with warmth and emotion, she knew that their journey was not just about teaching music. It was about opening hearts, building trust, and proving that even in secrecy, dedication and love could create something truly remarkable. The boy had found his voice, the father had found understanding, and she had found a purpose that went beyond herself. Their story, once quiet and hidden, had become a melody that would resonate forever.